OMG, LMFAO, WTF, football is back. Faster than a Josh Gordon appeal, Andre Williams shoots up the boards with a few early August carries against Bills backups. The NFL season started, as it always does, in Canton, and we have a witness to prove it.
Exactly. I was there. I can attest to the fact that Canton exists. The Pro Football Hall of Fame exists, and there was an awesome ceremony this weekend welcoming some new inductees.
Now, don't forget, fine listeners, that we have a 4-week preseason slog to finish before we can get to the regular season.
Cheers!
That's a good thing indeed. Oh, Full Sail Nut Brown Ale, quite good. I'm going to go buy a case probably tomorrow, assuming we still have some.
I just bought some Nut Brown Ale. Local beer, Blackstone.
Blackstone, I've had that one, yeah. Boom.
Boom.
So, are there any Titans showing themselves starter-worthy in early training camp? Did I sweat a bucket watching an hour of the Titans go against the Falcons earlier this week? We'll talk about why it might be a good idea to ignore the early fantasy ADP whiplash and some of the fantasy keeper league stash running backs you can get late. How you doing, Sharona?
Sharona has a new do. She's all sorts of happy about having her hair done. I've got beer. I'm talking football with my buddy Zach. I am tired, but it's all good.
That's good. Well, let's hear about this weekend. No spoilers.
Oh. Do you want to hear about the trip or about the events? Because the trip was eventful going and coming, as it always is when Sharona is doing something. No, it was this was my second trip to Canton. I was there in 2009 when the Bills played the Titans in the Hall of Fame game.
Big fun, baby. That's
yeah.
all I remember about the game.
And it was different because I was there as a fan that time, and I had a little bit more free time to enjoy the attractions. And Canton is a nice place. It really is. I enjoy being there. But this time I was there as part of the media, and so I had a job to do. And so I got a little bit of a different perspective, but it was fun to interact with a lot of the people who were in charge through the Pro Football Hall of Fame and through the city of Canton, the people at the Civic Center and what have you. So that was, it was my first big event covering an event like that, being credentialed, and I, along with some other people that I was with, we were kind of lost, and so they were very kind to take us around and give us a tour and show us all the ins and outs, and they really were fantastic to me and to the other people that I was with. So I can't say enough about how wonderful the city of Canton and all the people there treated me. It was fantastic. But some of the more, I got a chance to see some of the guys up close, because some of the events, they were fairly close to where we were, and to watch the interaction and the camaraderie and how they had already bonded, and it really was kind of special to watch that, and it was fun to watch. Claude Humphrey he and Ray Guy were two of the guys that were really fun to watch because they had waited for so long. They had waited for, well, Andre Reed had too, but they were all so excited and so appreciative, and it was really nice to see that.
Yeah, it had been at least 30 years since Ray Guy played, and Claude Humphreys, I don't know, he was in the 70s or something. So
he played before the sack was ever a statistic.
Yeah, it's weird how that stuff popped up. So was it like, was it just a massive media, and I'm sure there were a ton of fans?
There were a lot of people there. Yeah, it was. There were a lot of people there, and it was very well attended. There were a lot of Bills fans. there. And I recall that from the last time. There were a lot of Bills fans there. You know, the Bills fans travel well. They really do, and they were fun. The Bills fans were really, really fun. They don't much like John Bon Jovi.
Yeah, they're in a weird situation with that ownership. I was talking to a guy earlier this week who's in Toronto, and the whole thing about them maybe moving to Toronto at some point in the strange lease they have. It's not quite like the Titans situation because I feel like they're pretty safe in Nashville, but I don't have the rock solid ownership at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult to move the team. Not impossible. Money talks. But it does look like the favorite and I forget the guy's name, but the favorite to buy the team is a local guy. And he is loaded and just became very liquid by selling off some land that he owned. And so I think that I'll have to look it up. Ballester, I forget his name. I don't want to mess it up, but it looks like they're going to be okay. I know that the consortium, the group that John Bon Jovi is part of, submitted a bid, and it was rejected as being uncompetitively low. So.
It's so funny. When Arthur Blank bought the Falcons, I'd like to say it was 10 years ago. It might have been 15 years ago. He paid $500 million, and I think he overpaid at the time. And then the Texans owner had to pay $700 million, and now it's like you can't even get a conversation. You don't throw $1 billion in there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of killing.
They are lucrative. They are money making, for the most part, money making deals. It's kind of weird to hear these owners cry, money, expenses, we need concessions, we can't pay you, blah blah blah. And these franchises are growing exponentially in value.
Yeah, trust me, as a homeowner, I'm not getting the same return on investment on what's happening right now. Plus, they're kind of tax-free, and they get all these local benefits. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know how much are they paying for the lease on OLP Field? Like $20 a year. I mean, it's nothing compared to what's going out. Did you enjoy the media experience? Did you get to talk to any of the Hall of Fame folks?
I did not get to. I did not get to talk to any of the inductees, although some people that I were with did. I did not. I was kind of disappointed in that, but I expect that's, for my first event, I actually, I think that I did pretty well, just getting my feet wet and trying to figure out what to do, the ins and outs, and all of that. They were pretty well protected. They were not even though we had media credentials, you couldn't go down to the floor where they were, and so it was it wasn't in the cards, I guess, for me to get any sort of interviews. I did interview some local people, I actually got to interview some guys from Texas Southern, and I'm working on a story about that. It was kind of cool to talk to them. So they were there supporting Michael Strahan, obviously.
Oh yeah, right. He was a small school guy.
Yeah, there were 3 guys from HBCUs there.
Pretty cool, man.
Being inducted, I should say.
Quite the journey, going from the small school.
Yeah.
Especially, I remember hearing that story about, was it John Stallworth who went to Alabama A&M, and the Steelers got the only can of film on him, and they held it on to it.
Yeah.
It was even getting any information on guys back then was kind of crazy, and they used to have 30 rounds of draft.
Yeah, they wouldn't. They did not. People wanted to ask to see, and they were like, "What are you talking about? We don't know what you're talking about." You know, I mean, they were like, no, 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 we don't have anything. What are you talking about?
Yep. Canton's a pretty small town, right? Like both the NFL and baseball, like Hall of Fames, are kind of
72,000
small
in the
towns.
proper city, like 400,000 in the metropolis.
And how hard it is to get a room up there for the weekend.
It was incredibly hard to get. To get close in. I mean, there were facilities all around. You could stay in an hour or two out, which isn't that unusual.
So is the entire NFL female crew there?
And I think there's 50 of us. So no, the entire crew was not there. There were 6 of us over there.
Did you get to meet Mr. Grizzly Beard?
I did not. I was very disappointed because he only came up for the game, and I did not stay for. Yeah, I did not stay for the game.
The timing didn't work out.
It did not work out. I was bummed.
I really
wanted to stay for the game, but it would have really put me in a difficult position to do that. And it was nice to get home and sleep in my bed and take a shower in my own shower and all of that. Plus, I'm still nursing this sprained foot, and I picked up a couple of more war wounds over the weekend. I tried to knock myself out. Was almost successful.
You gotta, what is it? You gotta play hurt, I believe is the term.
I play. Listen, baby, I play through pain.
That's right. You don't make the club from the tub. That's what Tom Coughlin says.
Well, it depends on what kind of club you're talking about, but yeah, you don't.
Oh yeah. It's almost that time. It's like 8:15. We're gonna get talking about the stuff. Okay, let's see. What do we have? Oh, now we're hearing more positive things about Jake Locker as time goes on. But there's always this conversation that the Titans are totally screwed if he gets hurt. And then, well, I don't even say if he gets hurt; they say when he gets hurt. But isn't every other NFL team screwed if their top quarterback gets hurt? I mean, is there really that much of a difference? Like, if Russell Wilson gets hurt, Seattle's screwed. Colin Kaepernick gets hurt, 49ers are screwed. Tom Brady gets hurt. I don't care what they're saying about Ryan Mallett. So, does it really matter? I mean, your top quarterback is the guy, and if he's hurt, you're in a world of pain.
Well, I mean, the Jets may be in a little bit of a better situation. I mean, it just, to varying degrees, I think that is correct.
I mean, it's like if your backup quarterback is that close to your starter, then that probably means your starter isn't that good. I mean,
well, okay.
We'll see if Geno Smith is that good. I'm intrigued.
We've got to see Geno Smith step up. There's no question.
He had a kind of a hot finish to the year, but I mean, it's funny that Andy Dalton signed this contract, which I guess kind of, I don't know, it's hard to tell anymore with contracts. Like, I feel like it's a 6-year, $96 million contract, but it sounds like it really is a 3-year, $35 million contract. But at the same time,
it's got some. Yeah, it's pretty team friendly. Well, I mean, it could help him too, I suppose, in a way. It's basically like a 2 or 3 year deal that could get like renewed and stuff. I haven't really looked at, there's always, when a contract is announced, it's always announced in a manner that's most favorable to the player and the agent, and then you start to get the real details. And so I saw the announcement, and I knew the real money was going to come out, and I just briefly glanced at what the real money was all about, and was like, oh yeah, okay. And I didn't retain any of that, so I don't. I don't remember. I do know that, we're starting to see the market really being set for guys like Alex Smith. You're starting to see all the fluffy wuffy, oh, Big Ben's so great stories, coming out now, because obviously he's wanting a new contract. So
the money is whack, crazy. It's out there. I mean, whatever you say, I know Washington, like a decade ago, had some contract with a guy that was $100 million, but it really wasn't, and it was part of that. And we still, it's like giving into the shiny object, like we can't help ourselves. We look at those raw numbers and we forget. If you see those numbers in baseball, that's how much money they're getting because it's guaranteed. But in football, the guaranteed money used to be like nothing, and now that's the key to the contract. Like I'm guessing the Andy Dalton deal probably had like 35 million guaranteed, if that. Like Jordy Nelson signed an extension with the Packers, and it was like a $40 million deal, but only 14 of it is guaranteed.
Yeah,
So
you got to look at the guaranteed money.
It's very, very important.
Now, what does your banner say? I can't read. It's time for what?
Met in Burger.
Oh.
The guy who gets sucker punched by an Alabama fan.
The guy who threw back-to-back interceptions in training camp today?
Yeah, but at least the ball comes out strong. I tell you, it's got smoke on it, and he's SEC. So I don't know. Yeah, he's got to prove a lot, dude. Maybe he's a rich man's. Who is that third string guy they've had for 7 years? I can't remember his name. He was like Dan Omite's favorite.
Billy Volek?
It wasn't Volek. It was the
Rusty Smith?
Yeah, Rusty. Trusty Rusty.
Rusty!
The rich man's Rusty. If he can, I mean, honestly, in the NFL, if you're a 6th-round pick, if you can make it 4 years, you've succeeded.
You've done well.
But other than the untimely release of Tyler Wilson.
I know. Let me grab my beer. Let me cry in my beer. I've got tears in my beers.
Have we really learned anything in this first week or so of training camp? I feel like we've learned that Taylor Lewan is obviously a backup since he was playing left guard while Levitre was recovering from his appendectomy. I think if you're an NFL player, to get out of early training camp, be like, hey, can I get my appendix out? That sounds kind of cool.
Or can I body slam my teammate and let you suspend me for whatever?
Yeah, the black unicorn. That was, I don't know, all of a sudden Chicago's looking a little, iffy because they got the 2 big receivers, and then they lost Marquez Wilson that everybody's loving, and now Martellus Bennett's been suspended. But we'll see. There are no Titans. That's what I like to say. They don't have our weapons.
Well, he won't miss any regular season games.
Yeah, indefinite suspension doesn't really mean that much. But I think you were tweeting about, or somebody was tweeting about Cody Sensabaugh getting, looks like, that second cornerback job, at least for now.
I think he's probably the favorite to get it. He looks good. He's doing a good job.
I think I've seen a few comments about Tommy Campbell being out there and getting toasted. I'm like, yeah, it sounds like, it's a rite of summer.
Tommy had really nice coverage today on Nate Washington on a pass breakup.
Now, are you getting to practice every day? I mean, I know you were in a couple times last week.
Today was the first day that I had been since last Tuesday. So it had been like a week. Obviously, I wasn't there this weekend because I was in Canton. So it was kind of fun being off that week and going back and getting a chance to see. I think that I saw some progress in a lot of areas. I mean, it was really, really nice to see Andy Levitre back on the field. I did enjoy that. I got a chance to watch Daquan Jones a little bit today, so that was kind of fun. I got a chance to watch Tommy Campbell a little bit. Watched Justin Hunter a little bit, and I watched the quarterbacks quite a bit.
Yeah, the practice I saw, and you'll love this. The first 2 passes that went to Delaney Walker were dropped, so I was like, all right, sounds good. But at the same time, we're a week in.
You wanted to say that he was in mid-season form, but Delaney didn't drop that many passes last year. His catch rate was very high. I think he had the best one of the best catch rate, maybe behind Kendall Wright, on the team. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was like 70%, 69, something like that.
He's like, tell your boyfriend, I'm the guy.
I'm a
OMG.
big Delaney Walker fan. I'm just saying. I'm just
Don't
saying.
talk down on the Walker Meister. I was kind of happy today. This is like very end of the roster news that they added Chase Kaufman because he's a Missouri guy, and he was like, he won the, I mean, Missouri for about 4 years, like their three tight ends won the Mackey Award or were like all American at tight end, and none of them did anything in the NFL. Kaufman was at the Falcons recently, and they got rid of Dorian Dickerson, who got injured, and they put him in. But at best, he's their fourth tight end, and I don't think they're probably keeping a fourth tight end. It doesn't seem like it.
Now, what happened to Dorian Dickerson?
He ended up on injured reserve. He had some kind of injury. Like I was joking initially, I'm like, oh, they added Chase Kaufman. He and Dorian Dickerson are like similar kind of, receivers at
Dorian
tight
was
end.
looking really good in camp. That makes me
But
sad. I had
I
missed.
thought it was a hamstring or some kind of injury that I think was gonna last until the regular season, so they just put him on IR. So he's
Not,
probably gone. I mean, he was a receiver in a tight end's body kind of type player. So this is good. I
You're
like
second
some
down.
beer. I know. Should we talk the hardcore Titans talk now? One of my favorite series of the preseason is on Deadspin called "Why Your Team Sucks." I really like the one about the Texans, but I think when they're writing about teams you really don't like and they're really, really going hard on them, then you're, excited. But then when they start talking about your team, then you realize, do you have that much of a sense of humor? Well, let's see. I'll say some of the lines, and we'll see what the Sharona reaction is. So
I read it. It was funny.
you can only get jazzed about the idea of Jake Locker playing football. You won't actually get to see it. That's crazy talk. Let's see. Anger, not so much. Okay.
That was kind of. It's funny because it's true.
Your coach, Ken Wisenhunt. Yes, it was the Titans who won themselves the great Wiz sweepstakes of 14.
That
Sorry,
was a great
Detroit.
one.
You'll have to make do with the other stone-faced retread. I thought Ken Wisenhunt has a little bit more expression than Caldwell. In the article, the Titans were compared to football wallpaper and football weather. Wow. How exciting. And the final line, which has a dig in it, which is nice. The Titans are only going to get 2 games out of Jake Locker, and yet that'll probably be 2 more games of competent play at the position than the Texans will get all season. Yay.
That was a boom. It was funny. I have not had a chance. I know the Jags was out there. Have they done the Texans too?
Yeah, they're not
I haven't
very
had a
nice
chance
about
to read either one
their
of those.
whole quarterback situation. It is true. I think the Texans had 9 draft picks last year, and like 3 of those guys are still on the roster. And it's like, so you got rid of your coach, but the GM, he's totally cool. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Boom. Yeah, I can't say I got too much. I had to get out of work and go because they said the Titans were scrimmaging the Falcons at Flowery Branch, which is about 30 miles north of the city. So I got there about an hour late. And I'd say there were about 2,000 people there. I don't know what the Titans scrimmage attendance was, but it was a pretty solid group of people. And I was a little worried about being stuck in traffic because, Atlanta. But I don't know. You see a ton of fans showing up every day for training
Not
camp?
not as many today as the first few practices that I went to. It was a much sparser crowd today. It was hot. It was a lot hot. The wind wasn't blowing nearly as much, and so it was extremely hot. I have never been so glad to shower in my entire life when I got home to shower. So were you able to see anything? What were you saw the 2 drop passes. We know that, but what else did you see?
Well, they kind of had this hill, and they had 2 practices going at once. So they were kind of alternating. They were doing kind of the 7-on-7 at one point. So the Falcons' offense was on the far field, and the Titans was on the short field. So that's when I was able to see, Hunter going deep and such roster chum is Brian Robisky and Derek Hagan getting some attempts. It was clearly, Nate starting, Nate Washington and Kendall Wright, and then Justin Hunter was kind of second team. So I'm wondering, there's a lot of talk about Justin Hunter being a sleeper this year for fantasy because that's all we care about, right? And I'm not sure if he'll get that many targets if he's not on the field consistently. I mean, I don't see him taking a starting job away from Nate, but I'm wondering if the team's going to run a lot of 12 personnel, like 2 tight end, 2 wide receiver, no fullback, or if they're going to run some 1 tight end, 3 receiver sets with Kendall Wright like in the slot. I didn't see anything that was terribly worrying about Locker. He looked okay. Of course, they would basically run like 3 plays with the starter and then switch to the backup and then kind of cycle through the other guys because Tyler Wilson was still at the team. All I saw from Mettenberger was he was like taller than the other guys. Didn't really notice anything special about him. I didn't, because there was so much, like when the 7-on-7s were going on, they were kind of doing those in the pit things with the linemen, and I didn't really get a good look to see what was happening there. I just thought, wow, there are a lot of fans here, and there were a few scattered Titans fans, not that many, but I wouldn't expect someone to drive like 4 hours just to watch a practice because they only did it one day. Like I've been hearing about Washington and the Patriots doing it. It sounds like they're doing it for multiple days.
Usually the time, well, of course, this is another new regime in the Jeff Fisher era, and I remember the St. Louis Rams. They were here for 2, maybe 3 days.
Yeah, it makes sense to do something like that just to give them an experience against another team. Since
yeah, they did. They did
teams.
The practices like that with the position groups and whatnot, and then they did a little bit of a scrimmage.
It was like
one day.
2 years ago, was it? They did a practice, and it was like south of Chattanooga, and I really wanted to go, but it was in the middle of the afternoon on work day, and I just couldn't do it. But they're trying to get that stuff going, and I think they even did it like at a high school stadium. The Flowery Branch, which is the area north of the town, I mean, it's all set up, and I thought it was kind of cool because they had concessions, and I was like, oh, I wonder if they're charging stadium prices, but it was like $1 for a burger. So I was like, well, at least
that's not bad.
At least they're giving the fans a good experience, because for a lot of people, I mean, maybe that's why the traffic wasn't bad because it ended at 5:30, and I left around then. I think a lot of people stuck around because they're trying to get autographs and get to meet players, and they do that pretty well. And it seems the Falcons are pretty well beloved. As opposed to being pretty much ignored when I first moved here. And hey, they're on Hard Knocks, and I'm recording
there
that.
You go.
Although it sounds like the first episode is like a reality show. Like,
did you watch it?
We found out that William Moore has a palm tree in his house. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, it's still early. There's not much to do early. I mean, they just started practicing, but I will be. I did get HBO mainly to watch Game of Thrones, but hey, now I have Hard Knocks as well. So
there you go. I did not
go.
I had a show last night and was tied up. Did not get a chance to watch the Hard Knocks. I watch it occasionally. Like the last time I really sat down to watch it, poor Vontae Davis got traded by the Dolphins in a very bizarre fashion, and the first words out of his mouth was, "I gotta call my grandma." I was like, it was sad. I was like, what? I don't.
I'm not sure. You have to check and see. Like the teams that have done this, have any of them had a really good season? I know the Jets have done it, like the Bengals and the Dolphins, but the Falcons are coming off not a good season, and they really have to improve a lot to get back to their playoff ways.
I do not think that they will make the playoffs this year.
We are going to the Anchor Quarter.
I did see that Bernard Pollard called them pretenders. I liked it. I was like, you go, Crush Man.
Crush Man. Someday you'll be Crush Man.
You are the Crush Man.
Now I know, you have this daily radio show, and you don't talk about gender issues ever, but let's just try this out and see if it works. Ever. So the San Antonio Spurs, that's a basketball team, by the way.
I'm surprised you knew that, Zach.
A female assistant.
Becky Hammond.
What do you think about the NFL even considering such a thing?
It will not happen. I think the NFL will be one of the last sporting leagues to do it, and I think that it's going to take women trying to get in youth leagues and work their way up and hopefully get some opportunities in college and all of that. I don't think that the NFL is going to be groundbreaking for women anytime soon.
I think it's tough for anybody who doesn't have the playing background to make it. Like, it seems like to be a coach in the NFL,
but male coaches don't always have that either. I mean, it's
you
just
need to be a player or like a college player. It just seems like that's what happens. And I think somebody made a really good point. It's like, why don't you find like a 22-year-old who has been playing a lot of Madden? They're getting all this experience with the game as opposed to somebody who's like a college player and then an NFL player who hasn't done any of the coaching prep and maybe have like a pipeline like they talk about doing a minor league.
Well,
doing like a minor league to let coaches kind of.
There's that school that is offering scholarships through their athletic program for gaming. I forget. I think that you're going to see that coming.
I mean, like Dowell Logains, hard to pronounce his name. Like, he was a backup quarterback in college, and he wasn't going to make the NFL as a player, so he came in through that, assistant, kind of long path. I'm not even sure. Did the NFL? Did they have like a female ref like for the preseason, or maybe that was basketball?
No, the NFL is going to have female refs this year, starting in the preseason.
I mean, come on. Should not limit the role of women in football to sideline reporters and cheerleaders because there's some women football fans that'll mess you up. Just try to get them in your fantasy league and,
we're competitive.
Face the consequences.
I think that it's fantastic that the San Antonio Spurs are doing this. I'm not at all shocked whatsoever that it is the Spurs that are sort of leading. I mean, let's not forget the NBA not only is groundbreaking in that sense, the first female head of a sports union, Miss Michelle Roberts, head of the NWBPA.
There you go. Strength.
I think I said that. NBP. You know what I'm talking about. I totally messed that up. But the basketball, the player, she is.
Something.
Yeah. NBPA.
It's a bunch of basketball players, and we're talking about football. We're in the South.
She's badass, too.
Yes. I would not doubt that. So do you think we will ever find out whether Josh Gordon is going to be suspended this year?
No.
It is going insane.
I don't think so.
This is making me crazy. Like, I drafted him in that Scott Fish Bowl because it was the 19th round. And
Did you say Fish Bowl?
Yeah, and I was like, why not? And now I might actually have him on my team. But then the Ben Wibbers, who's in our... I invited him to my Dynasty League, and he won last year. And he reminded me that if Josh Gordon isn't suspended, then he'll be playing me in Week 1, and his wide receivers will be Josh Gordon, Julius Jones, and one Demaryius Thomas. So I'm like, maybe the suspension should be upheld. Give him a couple games, So that's one danger of fantasy is if you're in enough leagues, you are guaranteed to be playing a guy.
I suspect what is going on is that they are negotiating a compromise.
I would think that would happen, and at the same time, especially with the Ray Rice, situation, it's like, can you do something to make the fans like, all right, NFL, the dude peed in a cup, and they picked the wrong cup. What are you gonna do?
That was a weird situation. Of course, you don't know that you know everything, but it was a weird situation.
Well, definitely don't know everything. I don't even know. It's just a guy who's like 23 and had the year that he had. Usually when it comes to suspensions, it's like, a guy like Ace Sanders who nobody cares about. He got a 4-game suspension. It just happened. Nobody cared. It was just like, that's the rules, the CBA. But Josh Gordon, like seemed like he negotiated that 2-game suspension he had last year because it was unusual. Usually it's you get on the list, then you get 4 games, then you get a season. But with a guy as high profile as he is, we'll see, because it was a couple days ago, it was like either nothing or 16 games, and then now today they're talking about an 8-game suspension. And if you hear that, you hear like, oh, he's out 8 games, what do you do in fantasy? Like, where would you take a guy like that?
Yeah, I just stayed away from him. You know, and I know that I wouldn't say that I'm risk adverse, but I think that if a guy's a serial knucklehead like Josh Gordon and Justin Blackman, and yeah, I stay away from those guys. I just do.
You're risk averse, but you're a Vols fan. Sorry, that was a low blow.
You know what? I just know that you're a hater, Zach, and I just ignore it. That, by the way, was my first hater drop of the night.
I know, it was 37 minutes in. I'm very impressed. Nice work. Must be the lovely nut brown ale you're consuming, and that great goblet.
It is a pretty. I had this goblet. By the way, Zach and I spent an hour trying to get this thing going last week. We might as well have just did a show with me signing and him talking and stuff. But I'm just happy that I figured out what was causing my sound issues.
And me talking solo for an hour, I don't know about that. We need to, not do that.
I think you can do it.
So here's the situation that's going on. I am writing for a fantasy sports site. And I'm noticing that in the fantasy sports world, there is a lot of coverage for many different kinds of leagues. But there's one kind of league that I'm in that's getting no love at all, and that's a keeper league. People were talking all day about redrafts, where you just draft for 1 year and you're done, and people talk about dynasty leagues where you basically keep a ton of guys for the entirety of their career. But there's not a lot of talk about a keeper league. So I'm going to be just talking about me. I'm in a keeper draft.
I'm in a keeper league.
Every 4 years, we start from scratch, and we get to keep 3 players a year, 1 per position. So the redraft begins in about 2.5 weeks. Yeah. And we met for our annual draft talk, and our main discussion was how do we decide the draft order, and it had to be something involving alcohol. So you can tell we're not playing for high stakes here. But what I was going to do is talk about 5 running backs that in a keeper league you can draft late, because you're hoping that next year their role is going to get a lot higher. Obviously, we can talk about Bishop Sankey, but he's like a 4th or 5th round pick. He's still a little early.
His ADP is crazy.
It's high, but I think there's 2 reasons for that. One, because he has, it looks like, a lock on the job, Sean Green love in camp notwithstanding. And the fact that no other rookie running back has that path makes it a little, I think he gets a little bump for that. But here's some guys that I think will have value possibly this year and definitely next year. The Patriots. I know if you're in fantasy and you've ever had a Patriot running back, it is just an exercise in futility. Every week you're throwing a dart blindfolded. Stephen Ridley can run 20 times or 120 yards and 2 touchdowns, and next week he has 2 carries. So the guy who's kind of 3rd in the pecking order this year is rookie James White from Wisconsin, and Wisconsin has become the new running back pipeline to the NFL. For a while, Tennessee was really doing well, and Georgia. Seems like if you have a pulse and went to Georgia, you can get on an NFL roster, but these Wisconsin guys are going strong. And it looks like he could play the pass role that Shane Vereen has and the kind of goal line role that Stephen Ridley has. So he could be a guy that in next year, especially with those guys being in the last year of their contract, could be the undisputed starter next year.
He's intriguing.
Thank you. And the second guy is Andre Williams, who probably some casual players had never heard of before the Canton game. But he came in and looked, he looked a little more frisky, so to speak, than Rashad Jennings, who's been around for a while. He's 29, but They've already talked
But
about
not a lot
him.
of tread on his tires.
They've already talked about him being the goal line back, and of course we know touchdowns are pretty much the currency in fantasy. So even with not a lot of touches, he could still get 10 touchdowns. But looking at him in the game, he's not much of a pass catcher. That's a bit of a downside because a lot of us play PPR. But he does seem like he's going to get a lot of touches, and seeing as Rashad Jennings is 29, yes, he doesn't have too many touches in his career, and I think the contract's more than a year. Andre Williams could be the guy next year and even early this year. And next we'll talk about this guy has an insane amount of hype, but he's intriguing. It's Kristen Michael of the Seahawks. His mom thought that she was having a girl, hence the name. He had a troubled college career at Texas A&M. One of the stats that was brought up is like in the past 30 years, only like 3 running backs have ever not had a 1,000-yard college season and been a pro like fantasy star. So despite the fact that he has these incredible measurables and looks like the next guy in Seattle, everybody's loving on him. And if Marshawn Lynch decides to let it go, Marshawn Lynch held out and got kind of like Chris Johnson after his 2,000-yard season. Like basically the team's like, all right, we'll give you a little bit of bonus money up front. He sounds like the kind of guy who could just hang it up next year, especially if Seattle wins. And
You never know with, all of the drama and everything surrounding Beast Mode has to make you a little bit leery about his future prospects, how much longer he's going to play and whatnot. I like Kristen Michael. The measurables are drool-worthy, but you still have to wonder if he's matured because he had those missed meetings at the combine.
Yeah, that is a question. It's like some of those guys are just so talented. I feel like that happened with Bryce Brown. You might know a little bit that he was so hyped and just had that natural talent. You wonder how much these guys are going to take coaching, even in the NFL, where you're still kind of on the edge of being at the end of your career. But you got to like a guy on a team that is like a run-first team. Another one of those guys, Carlos Hyde of the San Francisco 49ers. Only problem with the 49ers is they draft a running back in the first 3 rounds, it seems, every year. But Kendall Hunter's already out for the year, and who's that other Oregon guy? He got injured.
Michael James.
And Marcus Lattimore, who knows if he's ever going to come back. So it looks like Carlos Hyde is the guy behind Frank Gore. And Frank Gore's 31, which in running back years is like 750. So he could get a pretty good role this year and could be the guy next year. The 49ers have a really good offensive line, so you're like, hail to the yeah. And last one I have is a bit of a sleeper. It's Donald Brown, the Chargers. I bring him up just because Ryan Matthews is on the final year of his contract, and he's the first and second down guy right now. And Danny Woodhead's the third down back. And you can see Matthews leaving next year and Donald Brown coming in and being that main guy. It was one of the weirdest splits you've ever seen in your life, like with the Colts last year. Like Trent Richardson was in, they averaged 3 yards a carry, and then Donald Brown comes in and they average like 5 yards a carry. So maybe he got a kind of second lease on life next first-round pick. So he could be a guy that doesn't do much for you this year, but could be a guy for next year. What do you think? You think crazy?
Yeah, I'm not buying the Donald Brown.
You're not?
Stuff. Mm-mm.
All right, fine.
No. I would say, instead of Donald Brown, a guy that you could probably snag later on is Storm Johnson of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh, yeah. I believe I heard a line about Toby Gerhart. They're referring to him as Yeast Mode, not Beast Mode. So there you go.
Who is they?
It'll be Rumford Johnny of the Two Mugs podcast.
Oh.
I gave many jokes to Toby Gerhart's Skin Town. And he has some kind of preseason injury, but I really feel like they're setting him up to just carry the ball a ton this year.
Yeah, he's going to be fine.
So if he gets knocked out, yeah, sure. I mean, Storm Johnson, he played with Blake Bortles. I mean, come on. The UCF Fighting Knights, who the Missouri Tigers play. Like
the Fighting Jags.
Mm-hmm. And they're sparkly and they have a nice pool, so you cannot hate on them.
Cabanas and everything.
Exactly. So this week I tried something. I did another hangout. Okay, I did another hangout. I apologize in advance.
You saw another hangout, Zach?
I know. It's
you are
wrong.
not to be trusted.
That's true. I thought we had an open hangout relationship. But,
For a guy who believes in sports monogamy, you are very polygamous.
That's true. I got a love for everybody. What can I say? I interviewed Jonathan Vandersloos of Top Team Fantasy because he basically said he was getting out the biz. He has been running that site for 2 years, and I know what running a site is like. It's a little stressful in the fantasy biz. Man, there are so many people writing. It's difficult. Although I've already said that I expect his retirement to be Brett Favre-esque. I bet he's going to be writing for another site by the end of the year because that's just what happens. We had to get that bug and we can't.
Once you get that bug, it's impossible to get rid of it.
I think he just wanted to take a break because like he and his girlfriend were taking a trip to like Europe for a couple weeks. I think he just wanted to get out and enjoy himself and then get back. He is a Canadian, but hey, we have a lot of Canadians in the biz. They're around, and they can't just do CFL fantasy. Although I hear it's quite intriguing. So right now, at this moment, how many leagues are you in?
I am in 3, and I have 2 invites that I've got to decide on. Like I said, I was going to stop at 3. So I have not. It's not easy. Oh, the pressure. Oh, the pressure.
I tell you,
so,
dance card.
I don't know. I haven't decided. I got one of the invites today, so I've got a little bit of time to maybe make a decision.
Well, the 2 leagues I'm always in, the Dynasty League and the Keeper, and those are just annual. And then I added the Scott Fish League, which actually has some regular season management involved, so we'll see how that goes. Just got invited to a Fanium League. That's one of those mobile sites. I didn't realize it's Grant Gurdon. I interviewed him for that article I did about DraftKings purchasing of Draft Street because he runs. He was like kind of the first to do like a daily site that was just mobile, and he does you can do your fantasy league just on your mobile device. Because, hey, it's mobile. It's a mobile world. But he invited me into a league, and it's a expert league, and it's 2 quarterbacks, but there are only 8 teams, so it's a little bit in the middle. Like a 2-quarterback, 12-team league, quarterback gets thin in a hurry. With 8 teams, it's not quite as bad, but it's still going to be a little difficult. But I like just doing different kind of leagues. And no kicker, no team defense. Woohoo! Get that out of there, But what I like about Grant is I put this challenge out to Twitter. Daily fantasy is going to be very big in 2014. I was like, is anybody doing daily preseason? So he set it up on his site. So it actually exists. You can actually do daily leagues with preseason players, which is kind of frightening, but kind of entertaining too. Because how do you predict how much time
I don't know
the
that
backups are going to get?
Yeah, that is scary.
Because I looked at it for they actually did it for the Canton game, and usually how the daily fantasy works is they set the salaries for the players. You get a salary cap, and you can pick as many players as you can fit. What was weird about it is the guys who had the highest salary were like the starters, and I was like, well, I don't think the starters are going to play that much. So all the backups had that lowest salary possible. I don't even know how you figured it out, because like the leading running back like in the preseason is always like some third string guy who gets a bunch of carries in the second half against guys who aren't even going to be playing in the league at the end. But that might be, it's like I've already said that daily fantasy involving like training camp stats is not going to be far away because because they already do like, oh, Jake Locker was 32 for 47 today. It's like, really? That's not that's okay. That's interesting, but how useful is that?
Yeah, I don't. They're not going to be very useful stats. Let's face it.
It's true.
I like the idea of them compiling it, but I don't think that they're
More information.
yeah. I mean, I don't think that they'll. I'm not sure what you'll be able to glean from those stats.
What do you think in preseason? Can you handle the ADP craziness, like players getting bumped up a lot because they had a good preseason game?
I don't
Do
pay
you
much
kinda
attention to it.
keep it calm?
I don't pay a lot of attention to it. I mean, I tend to, you know, occasionally I think that it's a fair thing, you know, to do that. But there's you can't make too many assessments based on preseason.
I just remember one year at the end of our local draft, we were watching the preseason action, and one of the guys in our leagues drafted a running back named Wally Lundy. And Wally Lundy was tearing it up in the preseason. He looked great, and he did nothing at all in a real game. But there are guys who have had really good preseasons who have done well, like Alfred Morris and Arian Foster, so you never know.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, last year at this time, two guys who were really getting the love were Ronnie Hillman and Zach, I call him Zach Studfeld, the Patriots, and it just wasn't quite working out.
Didn't Sudfeld get released during the season?
Yeah, that was the big surprise. It was just, this is one of the fantasy things that people do is they always go, last year equals this year. So the Patriots had Hernandez, who of course, went to the Hooskow. So they were like, well, whoever gets that, Aaron Hernandez role is going to be awesome. And I remember for like a week, it was Jake Ballard. They signed Jake Ballard, and everybody's like, ooh, Jake Ballard, and he was actually getting drafted. And then Sudfeld came in. He was an undrafted free agent, and he had a really good training camp and a really good preseason. And people were drafting him. I swear he went in the 10th round in our draft. And, he didn't make the team. And now he's on the Jets, and guess who's having a really good training camp? There's some guys
with good training camps.
There's some guys who do that. Like, I did the Perusing the Perimeter podcast. They do the Fantasy Football Summit, so I got invited on, and I was invited to talk about the Rams instead of the Titans. Exactly. I know, the Rams making me tired. Oh, boy. That's awesome. It was just that mess of wide receivers. Like, they're already saying, Brian Quick and Kenny Britt are going to start. And I'm like, you can talk Kenny Britt up all day and all night, and I am not. No, I'm sorry. He is finished. But Brian Quick is that guy who looks great in preseason and never puts it together. Like Stephen Hill, guys like that. I'm hoping that's not Justin Hunter's fate to look really good in preseason, then he can't put it together in regular season.
Justin Hunter had didn't he have the second most receiving touchdowns on the team last year?
He probably did. I mean, he had like 5 and 18 catches or 4, yeah. I mean, it was...
Kendall Wright had 2.
I swear his first 5 or 6 targets were all in the end zone, in his career. I mean, his first catch was that touchdown to beat San Diego. And you know what we like in fantasy? We like guys that score touchdowns. They're our favorites.
I think Justin Hunter looks very good in training camp. He is light years ahead of where he was last year at this time. Of course, he missed all of OTAs last year. Has been in the system a year, was able to go through the strength and conditioning program during the off season, did the OTAs, and I really think Justin Hunter is poised to have a big year.
Me do worry because you hear a lot about like running backs putting on weight, and that kind of hurts their speed. But I mean, Justin Hunter wasn't he 6'4", like 195 pounds? He was skinny.
He needed to put on a little bit of.
He could put on weight, and when you enter the NFL, whatever he was, 21 years old, you're young. You're still kind of growing. So.
He looks good. He really looks good. You can tell he's been working out. He's sculpted. You know, of course, everybody knows I like Justin Hunter, but I'm also telling you what I see, and he's been impressive. Kendall Wright looks good. Everybody knows I like Nate Washington. Nate Washington doesn't look as good in camp to me as those two guys.
Well, they have a lot of talent. They got the youth ahead of them, and Nate's just the wily veteran, and I'm perfectly fine with him sticking around. I mean, last year we were talking about.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that they. Yeah,
this year,
I like Nate.
Get him in the rotation. He's made some great plays.
So.
He's probably been the best free agent wide receiver Titans have signed. Probably combined the rest of them.
Oh yeah.
One blob of pain.
There's no question. There's no question. It's not even close.
Because he kind of struggled initially, but then a couple years ago, he's played out his contract. They didn't give him, extension. That didn't happen very often.
Yeah.
Didn't happen with, David.
He's been a great pickup. There's no doubt.
Exactly, but the trusted voice for covering the Titans is One Sports by Sharona.
That's right.
So you still going to be covering the team? You watching them for the next 12 weeks before the season starts, approximately?
Looks that way. No, yeah, of course, and I'm going to be there Saturday night to bring you guys coverage from my perspective. Hopefully, this new fancy-dancy high Wi-Fi will work, and I'll be able to actually give you guys updates.
Yeah, they're going to have the first preseason game. They're going to have, like, the new concessions, right?
Supposedly.
And actual Wi-Fi.
Actual Wi-Fi.
That's nice. Very nice.
Woo!
What else is happening? What else you got going on? Your site.
What else is happening?
Nothing. Yeah, of course.
I got my hair done today. That's the happening thing. I was able to do all my errands and go to the grocery store and the wine store, and so I'm very excited about that. I was stressing about whether I was going to be able to get all my running around done and get back in time to call Zach a hater just once.
Just once.
Just once.
Well, that's good. Yeah, so I am just writing a lot for fantasysports.org. Did an article about doing mock drafts.
Yeah, what do you think about mock drafts? I've been doing some mock drafts this year.
I'm actually going to post something, it might be next week or later this week, about 5 reasons why drafting with experts is not a good idea, just because experts rate players a little differently than other people. Like quarterbacks tend to go early, but I think it's just good practice to do it. It's just, I feel like diversifying, and because there's some sites that do it, but just don't stick with that, because then you're going to be drafting against one database over and over again. If you can draft against other live people, Fantasy Taz does this Draft Master series, which is, it kind of is real league, but it isn't. It's kind of like best ball, so you can actually draft against real life people and try,
that's kind of cool.
Strategies and different spots. I just did one where I had the 4th slot, and we just finished up. Team defenses, no kickers. I haven't drafted too many kickers so far, which is okay. I'm not feeling so bad about that. But it's,
I'm not in a league that has kickers so far. Well, I think one does, yes.
That's one downside of the local league, is not only do we have kickers and defenses, we have to roster 2 of each. So the last 4 rounds are a little tedious. We had 1 year where an owner drafted 6 quarterbacks, but you had to, it's like, I think you draft whoever you want, and then if you want to set roster limits later, you just drop guys, pick up guys, it's okay. But it's kind of silly, yeah. But every league has its own set of quirks. I think it's good. I wrote an article on Monday about 5 ways to sabotage your local draft. Lots of things you can do to mess with your fellow owners, because it's a mental game. Did that exit interview with Jonathan Vandersloot, that's on YouTube, and also did the Perusing the Perimeter. I did like 2 shows on Monday, 2 in one night. OMG!
You are out here grinding.
I'm trying to, yeah.
Grind.
See, there's Chris Myers, who goes by the very entertaining name of Fantasy Chill Pony on Twitter.
Okay.
Trust me, there's a story behind that. I interviewed him because he interviewed me. How dare he get in my corner and interview people? How dare anybody interview people? Barbara Walters, I'm coming for you. So watch it.
You are the male Barbara Walters.
Barbara
Walters.
Yes. That made me cry, though. It's a bit of a problem. And I'm trying to do a weekly review of podcasts. Like last week was just general interest. This week I was looking into Dynasty podcasts. So I'll try to keep that going on a weekly basis. I think next week on Fantasy Sports, I'm going to try to focus on daily fantasy leagues, get some interviews going, get a little basic, like how to, I mean, that's kind of the idea behind fantasysports.org. It's supposed to be about the industry and letting people know how to play leagues, how to get into leagues, what's available out there, who's out there, who are these crazy people who write about fantasy football. So that's what we're trying to do. And yeah, Zach_Law on the Twitters, and you'll get it all.
There you go.
Got any final thoughts tonight?
Zach out here making moves. I'm proud of my buddy Zach.
Brian.
You can follow me on Twitter at Sports by Sharona. Check out my radio show, 7:30 Yahoo Sports, 10 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time.
No, I can't.
Over with Vashti and Sharona. Check out my Friday night show. I'm going to be bringing you guys a preview of the Titans versus Green Bay Packers preseason game scheduled for Saturday night with Jason Hirschhorn, who writes for a Green Bay Packers site for SB Nation. And and I don't think I've had a chance to tell you this, Zach. I am going to be writing for SB Nation Fantasy Football again this year.
There you go. So pretty much get your hand on a little writing machine while you're sleeping so you can cover it all, right?
Yep.
That's how it goes. So
That's
yeah,
how it
it's
goes.
exciting. By the end of the weekend, every NFL team will have played a preseason game, and I'll probably have 37 hours of that on my TiVo this weekend. Should be fun. And I end up watching.
But we watch every single second of it.
Well, if you're a diehard fantasy person, especially in Dynasty, yeah, you got to watch to the end to see some of those end-of-roster guys. Are they worth your time? Anyway,
all right.
Going for two. We've done it again. Zach Law and Sports by Sharona. It's been fun. Let's keep this going because football is life and life is football.
Football is back.
Sometimes it bounces funny, and sometimes the beer is quite tasty. So good night.